Welcome to Troweling Down, Biblical Archaeology for the 21st Century. Hi, I'm Gary Byers. This is Dr. Stephen Collins, and we just got back from Egypt.
We did just get back from Egypt, had a fantastic tour, a study tour with our students and a lot of our Tal el-Hammam Sodom alumni, excavation alumni, and a fantastic trip.
Great time. We'll tell you about that someday, but right now, we want to talk to you about the Sodom Derangement Syndrome. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And of course, what it is, as we explained last time, is the crazy thinking that people get in, the reaction that people have when the concept of discovering the city of Sodom is brought up. Where is it? It seems to be all over the place. And for me, it was always everywhere where the Bible said it wasn't.
Yes.
And so so this is a series of essays I put together, and so we're sort of bouncing off those. And last time we did number 1. This is number 2.
How many derangement syndromes are there?
There are 10.
10 total. My.
Yes. Well, it's all derangement syndrome. These are the symptoms.
These are the symptoms.
The symptoms. And so this particular symptom has to do with not taking the Genesis geography of, and particularly Genesis chapter 10 and Genesis chapter 14, not looking at this geography as a remarkable set of data that it really is. For the ancient world to give us the entire scope in just these 2 chapters, to give us the entire scope of the socio-political, cultural sweep of almost the entire Near East is absolutely remarkable, and it has enough specificity to it to give us the sense that the person who wrote this completely and totally understood what this world was like, how it was related, what the cultures were, what the major cities were in the important regions, especially the Fertile Crescent.
So this doesn't sound like a document written by Judahite priests in the 7th century. This sounds like somebody who was around in the Bronze Age.
That's right. In fact, nobody in the 7th, 6th, 5th centuries BC could have possibly known all the details about these great kingdoms, even some empires that existed long, over 1,000 years before they would have ever been around. And these are kingdoms that had come and gone and changed names long before the Iron Age even began.
Well, let's hit it. Where do we start?
Well, there are 2 chapters, as I said, that really give us this focus. Now, we could do a lot more, but these 2 chapters are remarkable. Genesis 10,
Table of Nations.
Table of Nations. And so in the Table of Nations, we get a picture there of both southern Mesopotamia and northern Mesopotamia. So it talks about the southern Mesopotamian sites like Uruk, biblical Erech, Akkad, which by the way has never been discovered, but we know Sargon of Akkad of the Great Akkadian Empire existed. We just don't know where the city was, but the Bible talks about that city.
So do a lot of other ancient records.
Right, and Babylon. Okay, so you have the southern Mesopotamia group. This is sort of the Babylonia part of Mesopotamia. It's called Shinar, the plain of Shinar. And so this is all in there very accurately. And then it moves up to northern Mesopotamia and talks about places like Calneh and Elasar and Nineveh, places like that. It's really amazing. And so it covers basically the most important cities of southern Mesopotamia, moves up to the important cities of northern Mesopotamia, and then, interestingly enough, because it is selective. I mean, we're not saying this is a comprehensive geography. It is what it is for a reason. What this person is trying to do is bridge the remote primeval history of these very ancient ancestors to Abraham. We're trying to get from there to the patriarch. Now, if you did it in detail, the book of Genesis would be 347 volumes long.
Volumes.
Volumes. So we're foreshortening stuff. I mean, it's very brief, it's very succinct, and so that's what the writer is trying to do. But he's giving a perfectly accurate picture of the entire scope of the Near East.
Yeah.
And so he jumps for his purposes, because we're trying to get from the primeval people, we're trying to get from there all the way over to the time of Abraham. And in order to do that and understand the time of Abraham, we're not only going to understand Mesopotamia, Abraham's hometown, and Ur is mentioned in there as well.
Yeah.
So where Abraham comes from, but then we're trying to get over to the other part of the geographical part of the Abraham story, which is the Levant.
So, we got Genesis chapter 10 talks about Mesopotamia, northern and southern.
Mesopotamia, and then it jumps to the coastal cities of the Levant, Sidon, Gaza, Gerar, okay, and then it jumps over to the Rift Valley and gives us the run of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim unto Lasha, which is Laish in the north. So it goes north to south on the coast, jumps over
south
to Sodom, and then goes northward up the Rift Valley to give us the other side. And it says that the extent of the Canaanite clans was down the coast and up the Jordan Valley. Now in the book of Joshua it says exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It says the Canaanites were living along the coast and in the Jordan Valley, and who was in the hill country between?
Amorites.
The Amorites. So this is not that the Canaanites spread from the coast to the valley. That's not what it says. The Bible picture is the Canaanites are along the coast and in the Jordan Valley, and the Amorites occupy the hill country, and the Hittites later come in as well. So that's the picture. Now, how does that square with the archaeology of the ancient Near East? Well, it squares exactly, because that's what the Bible tells us. And that's what the ancient Near Eastern history tells us as well. It all coordinates together really nicely. Now, so we get the whole Fertile Crescent here. Mm-hmm. We go from Mesopotamia all the way up over, and for you guys it'd be this way, like that, from southern Mesopotamia, northern Mesopotamia, to the southern Levant, to the coastal cities and the cities. Now, why are they mentioned? I would say, are these cities in the Levant as big as the cities in Mesopotamia? No, it's a different world. But they are the biggest cities on that end of the Fertile Crescent. Especially Sodom, which is, we now know, Tal Hammam is the largest continuously occupied Bronze Age city in the southern Levant.
Yeah.
And so it's obviously the important one of all the cities in that part of the world. It's the most important one. And so he jumps over there and traces the Canaanites from there to Lasha in the north. So that's Genesis 10. And the whole point of Genesis 10 was to give the geographical scope of Abraham's world. And that's what it is. But it's perfectly accurate to what we know of the ancient Near East. Now we go to another really remarkable passage, which is inside the Abraham narratives. It's one of the sub-stories of the early Abraham narrative, and that is that the king of Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zeboim, these cities, this cluster of cities that the Bible calls the cities of the Kikar. The idea of calling them the cities of the plain is actually a misnomer, because the word Kikar doesn't mean plain. It means a circle or a disc. It's the circular, very fertile alluvial plain that makes up the southern part of the Jordan River just north of the Dead Sea.
It is the same word. Kikar is the same word for a traffic circle in Israel on an Israeli map.
Yeah, because that's what it means.
Round circle.
The word Kikar means a circle, a disc. So the cities of the Kikar are in that area north of the Dead Sea, and in one of the other syndrome treatments down the road, we'll talk about the geography of the cities of the plain specifically. But the point here is this marvelous sweep, once again, Genesis 14 takes us from southern Mesopotamia, even east of southern Mesopotamia, all the way up over the Fertile Crescent, over the Indo-European arc, and down into the Levant. It's absolutely incredible. This story is international in scope. Long distance travel, long distance relationships between kings, long distance campaign over several hundreds of miles, even over 1,000 miles. And so it's really remarkable. Now let's trace it. Genesis 14, it says there were 5 kings against 4. Now who were the 4? Sodom, we go back to the Jordan Valley. Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. Now Zeboim is really a doublet.
Yeah.
So there's really 5. But 4 named sites.
Yes.
Now, of those 4, they have been under some kind of trade agreement with this fellow Kedorlaomer, the Elamite. And this fellow Kedorlaomer, this king, is going to come to town to collect the debt because evidently the trade, and this may just be a trade imbalance. Now, I don't know what they're getting from Sodom, maybe bitumen or other kinds of things, we don't know. But they had been collecting taxes or collecting tribute from the cities of the plain, and all of a sudden they stopped paying. Kedorlaomer is going to put together a little campaign to go from Elam. Now, where's Elam? Elam is just east of Mesopotamia, up in the Zagros Mountains. And Elam is the great kingdom. It's a little empire. These are the forerunners of the Persians.
Yeah.
They're not Semitic. They're not part of the Fertile Crescent, which is mostly Semitic people. These people are Indo-European, speaking an Indo-European language. The ancient Elamite is the forerunner of modern Farsi.
Yeah.
These are the Persians. And so it starts with an Elamite king named Kedorlaomer. And he's going to put together an army, probably of mercenaries, and he's going to come up, he's going to go into the Fertile Crescent, and then he's going to collect some soldiers from a fellow by the name of Amraphel of Babylon. Now, some of the older scholars notice that the consonants of Amraphel and the consonants of Hammurabi, the king of the old Babylonian Empire, are the same. But here's the problem. They put Abraham way too early. They had a mistaken way of trying to figure the biblical chronology. We'll deal with that later on down the road here. But they put Abraham in the wrong time, which means you couldn't really hook up. They put Abraham way too early, several hundred years too early, and so they couldn't hook up him with Amraphel with Abraham. But if you put Abraham in the right place where he belongs, it's a good link. But anyway, I'm not going to force the case right now that Amraphel is Hammurabi, but it does work. So this king goes from there up to Babylonia. He collects another, from Elasar, he collects some more troops, and he comes over and he collects some troops from a guy named Tidal of Goyim, of peoples.
Yeah.
King of peoples. Well, if you're a king of peoples, it means you've pressed out from your own ethnicity to become a conglomerate including other groups, aka an ancient empire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? And by the way, he's Hittite. Tidal is a Hittite name. It's a good Indo-European name, could be Hurrian, but probably Hittite, because several of the later Hittite kings are called Tidalia.
Yes.
Tidalia.
Yeah.
And so Tidal fits perfectly. And so what's interesting about this is that exactly in accordance with what we know of ancient Near Eastern history and archaeology, there was a kingdom of Elam way back there in the Middle Bronze Age. And there was a kingdom, Amraphel, Hammurabi kingdom of Babylon.
Yeah.
And there was an Elasar kingdom. And there's another one in there. And then he gets to Tidal, and he's Hittite. In other words, it's just not going up over he's not just following the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia down into the Levant. He's bouncing off both the Fertile Crescent and the great Indo-European arc, which goes over the top of it.
Which he was most connected to.
Yes. And so there you are. This is absolutely phenomenal. Who in the world in the later periods, say the Iron Age, could possibly have known the details, the specificity of this kind of rather sophisticated international intrigue and relationships going on at this time? They would not be able to know at all. Well, Chedorlaomer shows up and at Sodom and the cities of the plain, but he goes down from there. Interestingly, it says he goes down into the wilderness of Paran, which would be southern Jordan today. Now, why in the world would you go down there? This just blows me away. Why would you go down there? They got plenty of scorpions and snakes, over in Elam, I'm sure. They don't need that. Why would you go down into this almost godforsaken looking desert?
I know.
And?
They've got lots of copper down there.
Boy, do they have
copper mines. Big
the
time.
great Wadi Finan copper operations are there. And it looks to me like Chedorlaomer knew what was there, and maybe knew their production schedule, which means a little reconnoitering. And he knew the production schedule, and he was going to go down there when they had carts and wagons loaded with copper ingots ready to be shipped out to the various locations around the Near East, and he was going to take them all. And probably take a subgroup of his army and take that stuff down to the Gulf of Aqaba, put it on a boat, and sail it around by water, which would be a much faster route than taking it all the way back over the Fertile Crescent home. So I think that's what was happening there. But he goes down there to get copper. It's obvious. He goes then to Kadesh, which is the copper distribution, another copper distribution point, a jumping off place for copper from both Wadi Finan and Timnah, which is the same vein of copper, one on the Israel side today, one on the Israel side, one on the Jordan side. And to take that, and then he goes up to Hazazon Tamar, which the Bible says is En Gedi. He's going up the west side of the Dead Sea, and then he meets the cities of the plain folks up there and has a battle up there. We'll talk about that later. And then he jumps over, goes back up the King's Highway to Damascus. Of course, Abraham catches up with him.
Yeah, he did stop at Sodom.
He did stop at Sodom.
Do you think he destroyed the city?
No, he did not destroy the city. He probably just took tribute. Sodom was so wealthy, he just took supplies and took stuff and people.
Including Lot.
Lot. And we'll talk about that in another one. But the point here is geographical. The geographical data, the sheer load of geographical data and specificity and international scope of these two passages, Genesis 10 and Genesis 14, are absolutely incredible, and they are exactly describing the ancient world in the Fertile Crescent, the world of the Fertile Crescent, and the world of the Indo-European arc, which layers up over the Fertile Crescent with a whole different groups of people culturally, and it's all there. It's all accurate. It's amazing, and this to me just screams eyewitness accounting. Somebody who's familiar with all of these places and all of these towns.
Not written hundreds, 1,000 years later by people who had no connections, but somebody who knew the stories, the people, the places of the time of Abraham. Well, it's all part of the deal. You're going to have to get this Sodom thing straight, and Sodom Derangement Syndrome is alive and well, but we're going to crack it best we can. Thanks for joining us. Join us again. There's more next time. Thanks for being with us. God bless.